New Landing's Job Chat is brought to you in part by the Prosperity Advisory Group, the next step in your financial future, and by the EBS Group with an unparalleled background in Oracle solutions and services.
You have a resume that has all your job history, so why go through the trouble of writing a cover letter? You'll find out today on Job Chat. I'm your host, HECTOR SILVA. Our guest today is Diane Stafford. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you for having me.
Diane Stafford is the workplace and careers columnist and a business writer on the Kansas City Star. A veteran journalist, she has held several reporting and editing positions on the business and metro desk, including city editor at the Star. She writes a weekly career advice column, as well as daily business and economic news articles published in kansascity.com and in the business section and on page 1 throughout the year. Diane is the author of Your Job, Getting It, Keeping It, Improving It, Changing It, a career advice book, and she holds bachelor's and master's degrees in communication from Stanford University. Diane, thank you so much for being with us.
Glad to be here.
How important are cover letters?
Boy, that depends who you ask. Sometimes they are extremely important because they are the personality tool that will elevate attention to your resume beyond your competition. Other times, they won't be read at all. The problem is you don't know which situation is going to be paramount.
And so whenever possible, it is good practice then to include a cover letter.
I would always include a cover letter if possible.
Okay. I know that in the internet world today, a lot of applications are done online,
Right.
and don't provide for a cover letter.
It's very difficult to figure out what to do. Some career counselors suggest that if you are in an internet situation where you can only fill in the blanks, that it might be possible to find a spot on the blank at the end of the resume to launch into sort of a cover letter format. Others say, go ahead and try to send something separate in email, even snail mail. Give it a shot. You don't know whether it will be valued or not. I was speaking with a group of top human resource people from some of the largest companies in the Kansas City area, and they were about evenly divided as to whether they read cover letters or not. You get to a smaller organization, depending how busy or who's doing the first line sorting of applications, you may have a better chance of having your cover letter read, but again, you just don't know. So go ahead and do it. The only way it can really, really hurt you is if it's terrible.
Who do you address your cover letter to?
It's nice to have a name. If you can have a name and you know that the person who's reading it is really the person you want to read it, that's the best. Always you can do it to whom it may concern, but again, you often don't know, is the only person who's going to read this the entry-level, first-line human resource office person, or is it going to be the CEO, or is it going to be the line manager that you would be reporting to? So it's hard because you don't know who your audience is. If you have to say to whom it may concern, clearly you're going to write a more general document.
As I said in the beginning, your resume has your history. Mm-hmm. So what is the cover letter adding to that?
The cover letter is a place where theoretically you can let a little bit of your personality shine. You can tell people how much you want this job or how perfect you are for this job. The cover letter also is a place to drop names. And that's not a sleazy tactic. That's a very important tactic. If your brother works at that organization and is a highly thought of employee, mention it. If you sat next to the CEO at a Rotary meeting and he told you you had skills that they were looking for, mention it. Because it is entirely possible that the bare facts on your resume don't catch the first screener's eye, but the name dropped into the cover letter will definitely catch their eye and at least give you the chance to be put into the in pile for further consideration.
And like you said before, they get so many applications for different positions. How long should a cover letter be?
Oh, not long. I don't know that there's an exact rule. You want it to be presented with white space, with paragraphs, with good-sized type, at least 12-point or higher, so that, first of all, it's easy to read. If you can say what you need to say in 1, 2, 3 paragraphs and confine it to one page with white space around it, it stands a far better chance of being read. You really cannot expect people to work hard at reading it. And it's also very important that it's proofread, that it's well written, the English is good, there's no misspelling. Very important to, if you're going to do it well and make it look nice.
Sure. This is your representative document, and if it doesn't look good, you're not going to look good.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't want to waste time just repeating the skill sets, the bullet points that you've put on your resume. That's a waste of paper, a waste of your time. Do something different with it.
And would you say that the first part of that cover letter is important because you have to catch them so that they read the rest?
Well, actually, all you have to say is, I'm perfect for this job. And that's, I mean, people in the Midwest especially are afraid to blow their own horn. You know, they were raised in a household that said it's not nice to brag. Well, you know, a resume is a brag sheet, but a cover letter can really be a brag sheet. A cover letter is where you have to be comfortable saying that I can do this, I'm perfect for this, I really want to work for XYZ or whatever. It is the place where your passion and your interests can be displayed.
So what I'm hearing you say then is that you have the resume that's your fact sheet, and then your letter is basically your sales pitch.
That's very well said. It's very well said. You know, one of the things that people, and this is not specifically about cover letters, but too often people's resumes at the top are still saying objective, and then there's a paragraph about what they want. Now think about it from an employer's point of view. The employer doesn't want to hear what you want. They're not in business to make you happy. The employer wants to know, what are you going to do for me? And so objective isn't the right thing. And in a way, that's the cover letter. You need to not at the top say, here's what I want, here's what I need. You want to say, here's what I can do for you. Here's why I am perfect for you, because that's what the employer is concerned about. They want to see a skills summary. They don't want to see what is your objective.
And is that the place where if you have had some major accomplishment that has helped the previous employer, you want to make sure that they're aware of that?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, we've talked in other formats about it's hard to blow your horn about, oh, I got this award, if the award doesn't mean anything to the reader who was not in that organization. But in a cover letter, it gives you a chance to say, I got the top employee award for selling more than anybody else, and we're talking about 500 coworkers all over the United States. So yeah, it's definitely a way to say, it's not just a little word on a paper. It was a major accomplishment, and I want you to know how big and important it was. Of course, you don't say it that way, but you say it so that you give perspective and give the reader who isn't in your former organization a clear awareness of just how big a deal, how important you were.
New Landing's Job Chat will be back right after a word from our sponsors.
Hello, my name is William Easley, Managing Director of Wealth Management with Prosperity Advisory Group. A job loss is an unsettling experience that almost always challenges finances and lifestyle. Important decisions need to be made immediately that work toward protecting financial security, which include making significant adjustments to day-to-day spending habits. The obvious catch is how to make ends meet on less income. If you should find yourself and your family in this situation, you should begin by itemizing all of your current expenses, no matter how small, and assigning them as either fixed or discretionary. Examples of fixed expenses are mortgage payments or health insurance premiums. Discretionary expenses would include entertainment costs or that weekly dinner out at your favorite restaurant. The key is to eliminate as many of your discretionary expenses as possible and reduce your fixed expenses if able. More importantly, don't postpone these decisions even if you receive a generous severance package. You must tackle them right away. Your ability to maintain a wide array of financial options may depend on a proactive rather than a reactive approach to budgeting so that you can protect your other financial goals like retirement and the assets earmarked for them. Again, I'm William Easley with Prosperity Advisory Group, the next step in your financial future.
Sometimes you run across a job wreck where the skill sets that you have could fit, in your mind they fit, but yet you have not been in that industry or done that type of job before. Do you use the cover letter to say, even though I have not done this, I can for these reasons?
I wouldn't begin a sentence that says, even though I have not done this. I would begin the sentence saying, as you can tell from my resume, I did this, and those skills are completely transferable to whatever the new thing is. Or, you have to build the bridge for the first eyes on your cover letter who may not understand the transferability. They're not specialists in the industry. So a computer programmer, for instance, who knows one thing and knows that it's exactly like this other thing, sometimes you have to spell it out because otherwise the first eyes on the resume or the cover letter won't get it. They simply don't know.
Okay. In your letter, should you mention that you were going to follow up in any way, or do you ask for a meeting in your letter or anything like that?
There's always a recommendation that you end your letter with a request for action. And it could be that I hope to hear from you and we'll call you. A lot of applicants have no idea who to call, though. In a way, that's an empty threat because the way that hiring systems are structured in some corporations, it's almost a black hole. You don't know where it's going. You can end with just the hope. I hope to hear from you. That sounds pleading again, but it just depends on, do you know who you're writing to? If you know who you're writing to, you can definitely say, I will follow up with you. That's an empty threat if you have no idea who's reading it.
Like you said before, it should be all positive.
Yeah.
Do you also use the company's words from their job rec on there? Quote what they're saying?
It's possible. It depends how much of your qualifications from your resume that you want to reiterate on your cover letter. One or two of the buzzwords, the qualifications for the job, certainly, especially if you have to help them understand how your skills or your former experience is transferable. But again, I would caution someone, don't make the cover letter look just like your resume. What's the point? It's a waste of time. This is the place where your personality, your eagerness, your energy, your contacts, your whatever. It's the place where you go beyond the bullet points of your resume.
Some people like to use different colored paper for their cover letter and everything. Does that make a difference?
Human resource people tell me that they are just irritated by gimmicks. They don't have time. One problem with colored paper is it often just makes the type harder to read. It doesn't stand out. And if it's not hard to read because you put it on brilliant chartreuse, it just hurts the eyes. It's, you always read stories about somebody got the job because they delivered their resume in a pizza box or something like that. And I'm certain that there are industries where that kind of chutzpah or creativity is rewarded. But for most job applicants, that's not going to win brownie points because the resume screeners are quite busy and they don't want to deal with gimmicks and even have to evaluate. Well, now, was this really a good one? Was this appropriate? Or does this just make me mad?
Are there different forms of or formats of cover letters?
Some counselors advocate something that's called a T letter, in which you construct it so that on one side of the page, the qualifications of the job, the requirements of the job are listed, and on the other side of the page, you counter with why you're perfect for each of those bullet points. Other people have never heard of a T letter, and they'd rather just read a well-written narrative. I don't know that there's any research about what's most effective.
Well, you're also trying to show what your communication skills are. So a well-written letter, I would think, shows that a lot better than a table.
And it's also a way to really point out something that you think they might overlook in your resume. Especially for a younger person who graduated at the top of the class from a prestige MBA program, mention it again in the cover letter, because it could be that, graduate, and it doesn't really sink in at the first glance on the resume itself that, well, this is a student who's really a cut above. All MBA programs are not created equal. Yeah. So if you had a rigorous Harvard MBA, you might want to mention that again in your cover letter, just to make sure that the reader sees that this is one thing that, in your own opinion, or perhaps in the world's opinion, that elevates you above other candidates.
So if you're not sure whether you should put it in, you're better off putting it in than not, if you feel that it's something that's worthy. Right.
The question of when you start saying, okay, I'm going to let my personality shine, people might have a tendency sometimes to talk a little bit about their personal life. Now, if you happen to know that the person who's looking at your resume is a golf nut and loves golf, you might mention that you were on your college golf team. If you know that this is going to be an affinity bridge. But what if you mention that you love golf and the person who reads your cover letter thinks, oh, great, there we've got somebody who's going to sneak out on a nice day. Well, again, you have to be very careful. And the whole thing about what are your hobbies and your special interests, and even how do you spend volunteer time, again, that's why it's important to recraft your letter and your resume for every single job and do as much research as you can ahead of time to try to figure out what is important for that particular person or position. Because let's say you said you were a member of the National Rifle Association. Well, in some jobs that might be fine. In another job, that resume or cover letter might be read by someone who absolutely hates guns and thinks that's a terrible thing and doesn't want you anywhere near them. So you have to be careful about what information do you share in a cover letter, just as what information do you put on your resume. You want to try to appeal to the common interests or the things that the reader prizes, but not the things that would scare them away from you.
So if you are talking about things that are not part of your work background, but other areas that you've been involved in, if they're relatable, then it's still a good thing to use it so you can demonstrate what skills you have
Absolutely.
through those
Right.
efforts.
It's always safe to use relatable skills. You volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, well, that shows you're kind of a nice person. Things like that are completely safe, I would hope. But it's always best to focus on talents, skills, and experiences that relate to the job at hand.
So if you were with Habitat for Humanity, nice person. But if you were with Habitat for Humanity and you were the captain or the leader of the team
absolutely.
on certain houses, that takes a different slant.
Absolutely. Again, it shows leadership ability, organizational ability, time management, group leadership. We're all going to be working in teams, so all of that is important.
There are some employers who just flat out say, I don't want a cover letter.
Right, right.
So in those cases, you don't try to force it down their throat, do you?
They're going to throw it away if they don't want it. Do it if you feel like you have to, but why waste your time? I don't know. Your time is valuable, their time is valuable. We need to respect each other's time. It could be that you do such a masterful cover letter that even though they say, we don't want one, we won't read it, they're going, whoa, this is just really a great person. What are the odds?
It's just that I feel whatever chance you can take, anything is better than nothing.
Absolutely. Right. As long as it's good. And again, let's go back to it better darn well be good. Because if it isn't worth their time or interest, you've wasted your bright yellow paper.
So therefore, professionalism
Yes.
throughout.
Absolutely. And research ahead of time. Again, you always want to try to figure out who's going to read this and what's important to that person that I highlight. You can write a generic cover letter, just like you can write a generic resume, but it won't get you the job.
And I heard you mention throughout your conversation that customization. So you would have maybe 2 or 3 different ones, or do you customize it per every application you make?
I would do it for every single application. I mean, it's on your computer. You just get in, you wiggle around with it. It doesn't make, I say again and again, there's no one-size-fits-all resume. There's no one-size-fits-all cover letter. You know why you are perfect for this job that you're applying for, or you're going to try to make yourself look perfect. You're going to have to do some artful adjustment of your resume and your cover letter to fit everything you've ever done look like it was the right preparation for this job. And how do you do that broadly? You can't do a good job of it if you try to do a blanket cover letter that works in every situation. It simply won't work, because part of what you have to do is say, I want to work at XYZ. You're a great company. My sister works there. She loves it. You have to personalize it.
And if you're trying to put together this cover letter and you have a lot of difficulty trying to match what they're saying, that might be a good indication that this might not be the job for you.
That might be the place to stop right there. Yes. And another thing is people do get frozen with their fingers over the keyboard. Suddenly they get all worried about business speak and writing, and they produce a document that's just wooden. It's not fun. And so one recommendation I have, and this is for kids who are trying to write college essays too, talk into a tape recorder. Talk it out, as if I'm talking to you, or as if I'm at a cocktail party and trying to explain to someone what I really want to do with my life. When you talk to someone, you're putting emphasis in your voice and you're letting your passion come through. And if you can do that for, boy, here's what I'd like to say in a cover letter, and you put it on tape and then play it back, and of course you can edit it a little bit, but I guarantee you'll find some of that vivacity and interest and personality that did not come through when you were just trying to put your fingers on a keyboard and type something.
And sometimes when you try to get into that business speak, in the end, you're not really representing who you are.
Exactly. The cover letter is supposed to be your personality, your oneness coming through.
Fantastic. Well, I think that gives us a real good idea of cover letters and how we should go about them. Some great tips, and I hope everybody who's listening goes back to their cover letters and starts to redo what they have to do. Diane, thank you for being with us today and letting us know about the importance of cover letters.
You're welcome.
You can follow Diane Stafford and all of her wonderful advice on kansascity.com, as well as the business section of the Kansas City Star. Diane was with us on another chat, so look for that on www.newlandingsjobchat.org, where you can find all of our previous job chats by clicking on the previous job chats button. Or you can look for Job Chat on YouTube. Until next time, may your days be full of health, happiness, and success.